All right, Dr. Brett here, and I want to kind of talk about a topic that has become more and more talked about in the last couple of years. I think more people are realizing it's a problem, and we get it in the clinic setting because of the physical ailments that stem from it. And I want to get a little deeper than that today, though. And that thing we're talking about is the use of phones, and what we see a lot is the postural effects of that from a physical perspective. That not only just like structurally, posturally speaking, collapses people, but it starts to suck their energy out of them. It affects how they sleep. It affects all their physical ailments, health ailments that they have, that kids have, adults have, elderly have now. Everybody's on phones all the time now. In my opinion, it's become the new smoking in so many different ways. But the physical part is what we talk about in so many different cases, that when you sit like this for long periods of time, how it affects your body as a whole. And I 100% agree with that. And I see it firsthand every single day in patients. I see it in myself. I see it in people just out in the day-to-day world. I look at how the phone's affecting them from a physical perspective, and it's not a positive thing, put it that way. So that is what it is. And I think the thing I want to get into, though, and this has become more and more of a thing and more of a passion of mine as well, too. And again, I see it in our practice. I see it in myself. I see it in my family. I see it in strangers. I see it in statistics. I see it in schools. I see it on TV, is the psychological effects of being on a device all the time. And I'm not talking even just social media, but being on a device all the time affects your brain. It affects your life. It affects so many different things. And I think this has become a thing that more people have talked about now, because now all of a sudden we're starting to see the data. We're starting to see the effects of this really comfortable, at our fingertips world that we've become accustomed to in so many different negative ways. The speed at which we have access to information has affected our level of patience. Our constant stimulation affects our rest. It affects our moods. It affects our cognitive brain development, even from a youth perspective. Like when you're on a device, they've proven this over and over, your brain does not develop properly. And your brain degenerates more quickly when you're on a device all the time as well, too, as the older you get. And again, both are negative on there. And I think the thing that really kind of spooks me at this point in time, we look at it as if it's a normal thing. And what are we going to do about it type of mentality. There's been books that have been written here recently. They've got a lot of mainstream press, for lack of a better way to describe it. One is Anxious Generation, is a book that basically talks about how this massive uptick in the use of phones and being connected to the internet 24/7 has affected a lot of the adolescent age kids, and the high prevalence of anxiety, depression, suicide, all these different behaviors that go along with poor mental health have skyrocketed since 2010, 2012-ish, when smartphones became a really custom, like normal thing. And I think that's the thing, as parents, we have to start to look at, because I get a lot of parents that will say, we talk about the phone thing, and it's like, everybody knows it's wrong, but they don't know what to do about it. They're like, well, if I took my phone away from my kid's not going to allow me to. And my response to that is, and I don't say this all the time, but the dictatorship at your home. It's not democracy at that point in time. Your child who's 14 years old doesn't actually know what's best for them long term. And secondly, beyond that as well, too, we all somehow figured out how to survive not having these things a period of time ago, not that long ago for most of us. And our level of fulfillment, happiness, they've done studies on this, was significantly greater then without them than it is right now. Crazy statistic, 1 out of 20 adolescent girls currently in the United States of America self-harms themselves. You know, they cut themselves, they do things to themselves to feel something, because mentally they've gotten so numb and so depressed in some cases, or so anxious, they're cut off from reality in a lot of different ways. And this has become the thing that they do to try to feel something. It seems crazy, but 1 out of 20 kids, 1 out of 20 girls doing it out there is a massive number. It's a huge number on it. That's 5 out of 100 kids. And that's the thing, like that's just the tip of the iceberg. Young adolescent males as well, too. They're, and this kind of goes along with this, but the addiction to video games, their addiction to pornography even. We protect our kids from the outside world, don't get hit by a car, don't get abducted, don't do something stupid with your buddies, don't drink and drive, things like that. But we give them full access to the digital world, to the internet. And my question to you, I guess, would be like, what is actually a greater threat to our kids currently right now? I think I'd rather have my kid break their leg than spend an entire year on the internet and social media rotting their brain and not allowing them to cognitively and emotionally develop the way they're supposed to. Because without those other pieces, the long-term effects of that we're starting to see now currently in our society. And again, you just look at it, like statistics clearly show this. The more time a person spends on their device, the higher rates of anxiety, the higher rates of depression, the lower quality of life that they have, the less happiness they have. They lose relationships. Relationships are what create value. Relationships on a device is not a relationship. It's a conversation that happens on there with it. The constant numbing out of people with a device, and I've done it. I've done it this weekend even. But when life gets hard, we go, it's our pacifier. It's our beer, it's our drink, it's our weed, whatever you want to call it. That addiction to that device is no different than those other things, because you go there to get a quick dopamine hit, to feel better about the circumstances you're in and not ever actually address them. Therefore, you dig a deeper and deeper hole and your confidence gets affected even more and more over the course of time. And you wonder why people's depression rate, self-worth rate, anxiety levels, and just overall enjoyment of life is lower. We don't address what needs to be addressed on there. And I think, again, my point to this is not to condemn people, but I don't know. I see people in a weird, I always say chiropractic is almost kind of like a weird form of a barbershop. And there's a lot of conversations that happen in here that are not just neck, back, headache type stuff, but it's life stuff. People get real deep sometimes. People start to kind of open up about some of the wounds that they have that come from a lot of different circumstances. And you're starting to see this with parents now. I've had multiple conversations with dads in the last 2 months even regarding their kids. One's had multiple suicide attempts. The other one's had multiple self-harming episodes on there. And they both come from really, really, really good families. And their parents are perplexed. And the common denominator there as well, too, is a significant amount of device time. And I think that's the thing, is that my urge to people and to parents specifically in this is that as a parent, you're in charge. You are not there to be the friend. You probably heard that 100 different times. You're not. The game you're playing is not, how do I get my kid to like me? Because that's how I say the quality of your life is based on the quality of questions you ask. Is the question you ask yourself, how do I get my kid to like me and think I'm cool? Or is the question you ask, is how do I help my kid become a contributing functioning adult that's mentally healthy and competent in the world down the road? If that's the case, what things have to change currently based upon how you're living and how they live as well too, the choices that you make and the things that you fight and you don't fight. And I think that's the part, is that being a parent, my opinion now is like it's harder now than it ever was before, between all the activities kids are in and trying to keep them still kids, this social media, phone-based world they live in, the instant gratification, the lack of really good friendships, going through COVID, isolation that's become a norm now. There's so many things that children are up against now. It's really hard to be a kid and it's really hard to be a parent. And what I would say is that now more than ever, you have to be even more intentional. And I think of this from an employee perspective. Like, if I don't get intentional and set expectations, I can't create accountability. Along with that expectation, I have to give them a vision as to why that expectation is there. If the expectation's hard and challenging and I don't give them a why that's better, that there's a hope for something better down the road, they're never going to play the game. And if I fail them there, the accountability piece, me holding them to the fire to help them get through that spot, to get to that next spot, is never going to change. And I think that's the part, again, I come back to this, is that your kids may not like you. Your kids may not think this is cool. Your kids may not probably want to be around you for a while if you were to change what they have access to on there. But if they understand why and they understand the expectations of it, just as you would do in a business type setting or an athletic setting, if the goal is to win, and again, win, you got to determine what exactly is on there. Like I said, winning in my world is, how do I create a better adult on there? Then I explain to them, like, this is why on there. It's not comfortable. It's not easy right now, but we're doing these things so that you can develop in a proper way to be a better human down the road. And I guarantee they'll thank us for that down the road on there. It may be hard right now, but it'll get better. So I think I would encourage you as a parent to Get really intentional with what game you're playing right now. Get really intentional with the conversation, relationship you have with your kid. The better relationship you have, the more transparent, the deeper the relationship you have, the harder you can push your kid. And when I say push, and I say harder, this isn't like running sprints with them. This is the fact that we are all wired, specifically when you're younger, is to move towards comfort. Kids and most adults do not move into discomfort very often. We're going to have to go against the grain to get this thing right. To get this thing right and go against the grain is hard. And that's the part you have to understand, is that your ability to hold that line and to lead them there and to do it with them type of thing is what changes this game. It's finding a tribe of people has a very similar type of mentality with it. Having other kids that start jumping on board. Somebody has to start it. And that's the thing. Right now, it's seen as the norm to do the easy part. My kids spend 10 hours a day on the phone. How am I ever going to change that type of thing? Well, if that's the mentality, it will never change. Versus, you know what? I got an uphill battle. I'm going to accept that for what it is. I'm going to build my relationship with my kids even more, because this is going to test it. And again, the relationship is the foundation. All of a sudden, you can challenge them to take steps in the right direction. And once they start to realize they feel better and their mind works better, and they didn't lose all their friends because of it, and some of their friends actually want to follow them, do the same type of thing, guess what? Now all of a sudden you're the hero, and they're the hero at that point. It's going to take some people to step out of the crowd to do that. But again, my point to this is that I don't care about your posture. I don't care about your kid's posture as a chiropractor. The more I'm seeing this, the more I realize, like, as a society, we need to start to change the conversation around this and start to change the urgency around it as well, too, because the further and further we go down this path, the harder and harder it is to get back out, and kids are literally dying at this point, and their quality of life sucks at small age. Kids aren't supposed to be depressed. They aren't supposed to be anxious. They're supposed to be kids. What we're doing is not working. It starts with a very simple change with this. There's other things more that need to happen, but at this point in time, a very simple thing is start to monitor what's going on. Start to eliminate the time spent in front of a phone. Make them build relationships. Make them do hard things. Make them interact with people on that piece. Make them have some quiet time. Make them read. These are things that you introduce your kid to, and you have to hold their hand along the way. But once you start to do that, help them journal type of deal. Get them involved with a group of people that do something different other than sit on the phones all day long, every day. These are things that you can do as a parent. And again, it's not going to be easy, but it's necessary. And the more we start to step into that, the more we're going to start seeing things change. And if you're willing to put the effort into it, you're willing to get a little uncomfortable, that's what makes things change in the long run type of deal. And you're going to be really, really thankful you did 10, 20 years from now, when your kid turns around and says, you know what, Mom, Dad, I really appreciate the fact that you put some pressure on me, because you knew that wasn't my best interest. And the path changed at that point in time, and my life changed at that point in time. Now all of a sudden, not just them, but their kids, your grandkids have a different path now. They have a different outcome. And society around them, they start leading the tribe at that point. That's how you make a difference with it. It starts with you.